We are not your grandmothers and grandfathers in NAACP, and I know some chapters that's what I think of. We wanted to make this organization that already existed, that had a name, to see if we could make it work more effectively for justice in our community.
I'm Rubye Johnson, and I am the Vice President of the Crittenden County NAACP.
I'm Shabaka Afrika, and I'm the President of the Crittenden County NAACP. Well, I guess my first response is it's not true. It's a fake story. But it was a fake story concocted by Mr. Hubert Bass and others to coincide with a court hearing this past Monday. The Crittenden County NAACP had petitioned the court to file an injunction against Hubert Bass, Kyle Watkins, Tia Handy, and several other people to stop them from having fake NAACP meetings. They've been holding meetings the last several months in the name of the NAACP, and they've had news stories claiming that they were the NAACP. We were asking the court to stop them from doing that. And so they concocted a story that I was printing fake cards, I guess, and pocketing, which means stealing the money, and said that's why we were going to court. But we were going to court because we filed a lawsuit against them.
And that situation had been resolved in the first place. That they had brought that subject up once before, but I had already addressed it in the courtroom when I was on the witness stand. I let them know and show the proof of the national not sending the cards and keeping our money. So it was never any fraudulent, we were trying to hide that point. We were having problems with the national. That's why we were in court. So we proved to the judge and in front of their lawyers that we had no other recourse. So they know that's been resolved. So they just bringing that up to muddy the water, anything that they think that would have the community against us.
Well, as you said, an issue about cards came up back in 2014, and it was argued because we've already, first of all, let's be clear, we've already won this case.
Exactly.
This case was won in September 2nd, 2015, and the NAACP appealed it, and we won the appeal last year around April. And so it's a moot point. At this juncture, what they're doing is trying to damage the Crittenden County NAACP and me personally. The problem is that Mr. Hubert Bass and our former lawyer, Mr. Bill Llewellyn, had concocted a legal scheme with his friend, Bill Llewellyn's friend, Tanya Alexander, to take our money. He told us right here last June, on June 14th, in a meeting here with our executive board, that he was going to go to Tanya and ask her to take our money. Because see, the NAACP paid the $117,000 to us and $24,000 to him in legal fees. So he concocted this story to get some more money. Matter of fact, when we went to court last October, he asked the court to give him $31,000 more. Now, once he and Tanya and Bass had concocted a legal plan to get more of the money, he then double-crossed Mr. Bass. Then, it's really kind of funny, yeah. Then Mr. Bass went and petitioned the court that all of the money, the whole $117,000, belonged to him. And when the judge denied the request, he got mad and accused her of being a racist, so she recused herself. Then a new judge comes in, the original judge was Honeycutt, the new judge is Judge Lesby, and earlier this year, I believe back in February, the judge denied Mr. Bass's petition again. So once he couldn't get all the money, then the next plan was to try to bring damage to the NAACP and bring damage to me. he and a group of people, they were accusing me of pulling guns on people, of misusing money, cursing people out, whole bunch of stuff. It really kind of, it's silly. And people say, well, does it bother you? No, not really. Actually, I'm glad that they're doing it because it actually works in our favor, because this is more proof to the judge of the damage that they're doing to us. And plus, they expose who our enemies are. And the irony of all of this, and I don't know if I've ever discussed this with Ms. Rubye or not, the irony of this was Mr. Bass and myself discussed this very thing a couple of years ago. We said that when the money comes, we're going to have problems. We even began to name the people that we'd have problems with. James Pulliam, and I see his name has popped up. Vicki Robson, Elbert Smith, who's a friend of his, his name has popped up. So all of the people that we knew we'd have a problem with, we're having a problem with them. And some of these people are some unscrupulous characters. It's interesting. At the time this started, back at the election in 2010, Mr. Bass was the Election Supervisory Committee chairman, which means it was like being the head of the election commission in another race. And so when the state president, Mr. Dale Charles, who was a good friend of the former president, Ms. Willie Cather Jones, he came and announced that he was going to run the election, that he brought his own ballots. Some argument took place, and I wasn't privileged to most of it because I was a candidate. Then Mr. Bass, Elbert Smith, and who else was
Lawrence Brown?
No, it was Herman Coleman.
Herman Coleman, yes.
And they were the election supervisory committee. So Mr. Bass ordered the state president expelled from the building. He went back, got his friends at the National to say that they were going to suspend the election results. And at that point, we filed a suit in court. We got an ex parte injunction. The judge said that they agreed that the election was done properly and in order, and he ordered them to restrain from interfering. And so Mr. Bass's name is on the lawsuit. He claims that it's his lawsuit, but it was not filed in his individual capacity. It was filed in his official capacity. The damages, the punitive damages, were ordered by the court in 2015 to go $100,000 to go to the Crittenden County NAACP and $20,000 in legal fees. By the time the appeal was done, that amount with interest was 117 and approximately 24. In addition, we'd already paid Mr. Llewellyn so much. So Mr. Llewellyn has already collected about $28,000 in legal fees, but he asked the court last October to give him another $31,000. And interesting, he came up with some fake papers that he and Bass had produced that said that myself and Vice President Johnson we wanted $70,000 to put in our pocket, which is just absolutely untrue. And I'll let her speak to that.
Yes. In fact, the money conversation that Mr. Shabaka forgot to mention, the money conversation was introduced by Mr. Bass. He was the one who wanted to get money. Because we hadn't even thought about it. We were talking about different things and how we could do foundation, what we could do for the community, scholarships and all of that. What we could do. He came up with that we should get some money. So
and let me say
that's strange to me.
It's illegal. The NAACP is a nonprofit. The monies that were ordered by the court to be paid to the NAACP goes to the NAACP bank account, which is exactly where it goes, which is exactly where it is. So I want to make clear, we won the case, we have the money. And it is, unless you produce a receipt or a document showing that you perform some services, it is illegal under nonprofit law and IRS codes to pay an individual any money. So none of us, the money wasn't earmarked for Mr. Bass, nor me, Ms. Johnson, or any other member of the organization. Mr. Llewellyn can only collect legal fees. The extra $31,000 that Mr. Llewellyn wants, and still wants, there is no statute on Arkansas law to allow that, and the judge has denied him that. Mm-hmm. So Mr. Bass and Llewellyn they just want the money. All this is about the money. We already have the money. We've already won the case. And so this whole argument about fake cards is just a fake argument. I'm going out to a foundation or to a corporation, asking them to sponsor a program we're doing. For instance, we're having an upcoming award show to get somebody to sponsor the food or entertainment. They're going to look at you a little tougher if this kind of information is floating around. I don't know if they may say, I don't know if I want to be involved with these people. Sounds like something's crooked going on. Let me wait and see how this plays out. So as long as they can, and also people may be considering joining. We got people that we've already written memberships on and sent in, and since they don't have their cards yet, they may be wondering, well, did they take our money? So let me address that. First of all, most memberships are paid by check. Some of them by cash. And so they're made out to the Crittenden County NAACP. They're deposited into our account. Our secretary writes a check, and it takes 2 signatures on each check. So let's be clear about that. Then she sends that money into the national organization, and it normally takes anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks to get those cards back, and then we mail those cards out. Now, unless you send your money directly to the national, then they'll send the cards to you. But no, we don't steal the money. Actually, I don't need the money, to be honest with you. Sorry. Do you, Ms. Rubye?
I'm not rich at all, but I live well. And I'm not going to jail at this age over a few little pennies.
And in fact, if you're talking about, they didn't accuse us of stealing the court audit money, but of fake card money, which would have amounted to probably, I don't know, $200, $300, $400 maybe.
Yeah.
So it makes really a foolish argument. And what it shows us, and I hope they keep going, it shows us that if all they have are lies, they don't have much. Because, you know, lies paint you in a corner. And so you can look at court records in October and again in January. Mr. Bass is arguing before the court that all of the money, he wants all the money. Now he's claiming I've stolen $200 or $300. He wants all the money. Mr. Llewellyn wanted an extra $31,000. So it's clear who wants the money. All this is about the money. A lot of people have been involved in family disputes. You kind of get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to touch on something because they said it in court and they said it on the news, Channel 3. They were saying that they didn't want to come here because they feel uncomfortable and all of that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, but we've been coming for years and they didn't feel uncomfortable. It's strange they feel uncomfortable now. And at the time that we came, the Roberta Jackson Neighborhood Center is where we had been meeting, but the city closed it down and we didn't have anywhere else to go. Shabaka offered us coming here, which saved us a lot of problems and a lot of trouble and trying to get somebody to let us come. Nobody objected then because we didn't have anywhere to go. It was a comfortable place. If you look around, you see all the NAACP material that we store here. The Afrika bookstore donated a computer. I donated the printer you see back there. We have all our paperwork. We have banners. We have T-shirts, stuff that we collected. What would that be?
Oh, and they said that we have meetings in my house. Well, my house is in Marion. I do have small living quarters here at our business because we spend a lot of time here, but my house is in Marion. The thing about, I think people get confused, meeting place. We meet here throughout the week. People call here. This is an office. We actually have a staff. It's not paid, and the staff is me. If we had an office, who would man it? Because it's a volunteer organization. So it's the logical thing to do is to have an office. Now, I guess we could meet anywhere, but we never had a problem with meeting here, or we had a problem with nothing until last June when the money became an issue. Not a single person. Matter of fact, Mr. Kyle Watkins said on the news that I might pull a gun on you. But he told the Evening Times reporter, when he asked him, he said, have you ever seen him pull a gun? He said, no. Miss Tia Handy said that I hired the lawyer. Whatever lawyers we've had, they say I hired them. And so when some of the ladies that were members asked her if that was so, she said, no, we hired them together. But they're lies. But people ask me all the time, does it bother you? Well, you know, I was a pretty good athlete when I was younger. And a lot of times you get hurt, you get banged upside of the head. Sometimes I bang some people upside of the head. The thing about it is it never stopped me. I sprain an ankle, I'd get back on the next 2 or 3 days and re-sprain it. Eventually we'll heal, I get right back out there. So the point is we understand we're in a war. Mr. Bass and I discussed this clearly. When the money comes, the problems are going to escalate. We just didn't know the problems it would be him.
Yeah. And we know that the people, all the people know all us and know everybody involved. This is a small community. I think you need to consider the source. They need to consider the source. They know most of these people. They've seen them in the news, seen them on TV. They need to consider the source. And they also need to go back. We've given them the information where they can Google, where they can pull all this information. They don't have to take our word. They don't have to take their word. They can go read for themselves. See, you can say anything. Anybody can say anything, because I can tell you right now that I can stand up and dunk. Now, I can say that. I can say that. But the proof is facts. What facts do you have? Because your opinion and the way you feel about a person, it's because they don't like us or have an opinion, it does not make it a fact.
Mr. Llewellyn is an attorney for this group when he was our former attorney. Now, that's an ethics violation.
Yeah, it is.
And I asked our attorney, why didn't you object to that?
Yeah.
In fact, he shouldn't be arguing because, as I told him, he asked about fake cards. I said, you mean the cards that you help us change, help us produce? I said, this whole case has been argued successfully by you in court. I've got some text messages from Mr. Llewellyn from last June where he was threatening to ruin my reputation, have me run out of town. So this campaign to destroy my name is part him and Mr. Bass. The problem that they have is they can't trust one another. The problem they're going to have, they can't trust one another. Well, here's the thing that we wanted to talk about. We're planning right now a health fair / back to school
Rally.
Coming up soon, and we have to be careful to tell people when and where we're doing it, because people like this will go back and sabotage it. We've got an award show coming up this fall. We are part of an annual Christmas parade. Miss
Voter registration.
Yeah, Miss Rubye Johnson's sorority, Delta Sigma Theta, have been partnering with us all along. We went out to the high school last month and registered a whole bunch of children to vote, and we're going to go back probably in September, so that these 18-year-olds are registered to vote by November. Also, we have a number of initiatives going on. Right now, we're dealing with an issue with a young lady being bullied at Marion School. We've already met with the school superintendent, the parent. They met here. The parent and the young lady did, and we'll be meeting with the school superintendent next week to discuss these are kind of. We're going to be meeting with the principal too. You're right. But the main thing, another thing we want to do is, because so many people have complained about Bill Llewellyn taking their money and not doing anything, and we've heard this a lot, and we didn't know this about him until he started doing it to us. So we're encouraging people to file complaints to the Arkansas Board of Professional Conduct. You can hold these people accountable if you'll report them. In Mr. Llewellyn's case, and we have the records, all you do the background check on it. Mr. Llewellyn has been fined $10,000 for one infraction. That was back about 2012. Before that, he was fined $5,000. Before that, he was fined $1,000. You know, he actually has run over and killed a person in Mariana that turned out to be his cousin. He has numerous altercations with law enforcement because he's an alcoholic. Now, we don't say that to embarrass him, but we want to be clear that when people hire lawyers, you need to understand that you can hold lawyers accountable. They don't have to take over your life and take your money and you not have any recourse. And that's a big thing we plan to do. But we've got so many things that that we plan to do, but we don't get a chance to talk about that as much as we'd like to. For instance, we meet every Monday at 6 o'clock, not every Monday, every third Monday at 6 o'clock. We've had the county sheriff out here. We've had the hospital administration here. We've had the county judge here. We've had business people here. We've had our main objective is to keep our community informed and also to be advocates for equal rights and justice under the law. This stuff about Bass and Kyle Watkins, you know, Kyle is hustling. He's trying to get in with Bass to get a little money. I understand it won't work. They've even gotten some other people to sign an affidavit. I'm anxious to see what these people do in court when they're cross-examined on the court and ask them, have you witnessed any of the things that you signed? Half of them have never been to an NAACP meeting.
Not one in 8 years.
Half of these people haven't even been to a meeting, and they have signed their name.
They have.
And they have witnessed guns being pulled and money being misused. And some of the stuff is so stupid. We're going to post all of that on Facebook, and we're going to post their names. Some of the people, it's going to be embarrassing. But one man signed it, and his girlfriend signed it right beneath him, and he's married, and his wife lives in Memphis. It just give you one of the ladies is the longtime girlfriend of Llewellyn's, and she's married. I mean, and that's George Gray Tillers. I'm going to call her name out because she's a major problem in this community. So I had to call her name out. The other people, their names are going to be called out. And they're going to be called out on Facebook. They're going to be called out in court. And they're going to be called out in individual lawsuits for slander and defamation. And that's a promise. But we don't have a choice. They could have stayed out of it. All they had to do was stay out of it. But it's a coup. They hope to either damage us enough so they can take the organization over this fall and steal the money. Some just want to get rid of me because they don't like me. But, I mean, that's their prerogative. Interesting.
And a few of them already said that they didn't know what they were signing. But, you know, ignorance is not justified in the law. When you sign your name, you need to know what you're signing. And the first question that our lawyer is going to ask, well, when did you witness it? And then I know several of them are going to have to say they didn't because they've never even been. Well, have you ever been to a meeting? Never, ever been to a meeting.
One lady sent it to us on it, and she was with us at the school registering children to vote. But I don't think she thinks we know it. I think she thought that the signatures would be on a list and it would be sent to the NAACP.
We wouldn't see
They had
it.
no idea that their names would be attached to a lawsuit. Sorry. But listen, people ask me all the time, does it bother you? I have a confession to make. I actually like fighting. And the thing about it, this is inevitable. You can't avoid this. This is the dysfunction that exists in the black community. Globally, the black community isn't politically evolved for political unity. And all groups in America have group power. And because we can't practice group power, then the group can't succeed. And the Crittenden County NAACP is a stabilizing force in this community, and in particular, since we have a few dollars, but for the last several years, with the help of Mr. Bass, actually, we've been able to address issues, to explain the psychology of racism and the psychology of black powerlessness. And what you see, it's on display right now. It's political cannibalism. They want to eat me, and when they're through, if they're successful, they'll eat each other because they're missing character on integrity. This is that greed, that jealousy, and that fear that I constantly talk about, the unholy trinity that undermines progress for the black community.
Yeah. And we say a lot of times that we cannot unify, but it's really sad that we can only unify when it's on the negative side. Now, all these people that in that little group, at one time or another, they have been at each other, not liking each other, calling each other names and everything, but they come together for this. I just wish, let me look at them in their eyes and say, if you can come together and don't like each other for negative, let's come together even if we don't like each other and do something positive. How about that?
They can't do it because people are what they are, and they're showing us who they are. There's a lack of character here, and you wonder why. People often wonder why we can't have banks, insurance companies, why we don't own sport teams, why we don't own black haircut products, businesses, why we're not in charge of our life outcomes and our resources. This is it. And if you go to Scripture, those people that are incapable of practicing love and respect and honor inside of their group fail and are carried off into captivity. And so, not to get overly political, but this is absolutely dysfunction. If you watch how a hostile takeover of one company or another, the first thing they do is they float information, negative information, to drive the stock prices down. on the company. Then you go in and buy up the stocks at a cheap price, and then when it comes back up, then you become wealthy and you own the stocks. It's a classic. It's classically what they're doing. It's not going to work because we're not going to let it. It's simple. People say, how you're not going to let it? They say, well, what are you going to do? You'll know when we do it. The beautiful thing about it is that everything that they say is a lie. And they have to attack. If they'll be still and be quiet, they know they can't win. But when they're attacked, they expose themselves to us so we can move in to destroy what they're doing. And they can't beat us because we're not trying to win. We've already won. We won. The lawsuit was won. We have the money. The money is in our bank. People say, well, what are you going to do with the money? We pay our expenses. One of the things I was so happy about, one of our members had donated several $1,000s to help with some of our legal fees because the NAACP didn't have money to fight our legal fees. And we were able to pay him back. We were able to pay some of the bills and some of the people back for the monies that they had contributed to this. And that's, of course, is legal. So I'm ecstatic. And the fact that we are on the camera today telling our story, hey, I mean, and I want to come back the next time and talk about, I think I told people that I wanted to talk about the anatomy and the structure of racism. And I wanted to talk about that in an intelligent way and not have to always be engaged in these distracting conversations. But I don't know. This is part of the struggle, that the treachery within the group has to be exposed. So this isn't the first time that Mr. Bass had betrayed me, but I had hoped that he wouldn't do this again. So, and I knew I would get this from Elbert Smith. I knew that Tia Han did. They're talking about stealing money. I found 2 or 3 things which she's stolen money from us in the past. I didn't say anything because I said, well, it's my fault or our fault. We need to be a little bit tighter about that. And we didn't want to interrupt the little bit of unity that we did have. But we knew this was coming, so we're okay with it. We are not your grandmothers and grandfathers in NAACP. And I know some chapters that's what I think of. We wanted to make this organization that already existed, that had a name, to see if we could make it work more effectively for justice in our community.